There are moments in life that don't ask for your permission. They don't care about your schedule, your status, or the number of zeros sitting in your bank account. They simply arrive, raw, unannounced, and absolute. And on a frozen Tuesday night in rural Montana, one of those moments found Victoria Caldwell, doing 60 miles an hour on a road that had no business being driven at all. The storm had come faster than anyone predicted. The radio said light flurries. The windshield said otherwise. By the time Victoria realized she had lost the highway, her white Range Rover was sliding sideways across a sheet of black ice, and the only thing that stopped it from going into the ditch was a wooden fence post that crumpled like paper under the front bumper. The engine coughed twice and died. The headlights flickered. Then nothing. Just wind, just white. Just silence that felt louder than any boardroom she had ever commanded. Victoria Caldwell was 29 years old, the sole heir to Caldwell Industries, a real estate and energy empire worth $4 billion. She had flown into Billings that morning for a land acquisition meeting, dismissed her driver because she preferred to handle the back roads herself. And now she was sitting alone in a dead car with a cracked phone screen. No signal, and temperatures dropping toward -15. She was not a woman who panicked. She had negotiated hostile takeovers at 24. She had buried her father at 26 and walked straight back into the office the next morning. She did not panic, but sitting in that silence, watching the snow bury her hood inch by inch, she felt something she had not felt in a very long time. She felt completely, utterly helpless. The light came from nowhere, a bouncing yellow beam cutting through the white wall of the storm. Then the sound of boots, heavy, unhurried, the kind of footsteps that belong to someone who has walked difficult ground his whole life, and then a knock on her window. She rolled it down 2 inches. He was tall, worn canvas jacket, no hat, snow already collecting in his dark hair. His face was angular and weathered in the way that outdoor years carve into a man. He looked at her without surprise, without excitement, without any of the recognition she was used to seeing when people realized who she was. "Your car's not going anywhere tonight," he said. His voice was flat and unhurried, like the land around him. "Storm's going to get worse before it gets better. You can come inside or you can stay here. Your call." She came inside. His name was Daniel Rowe, and the farm he led her to was barely standing. She could see that much, even through the blizzard. The barn leaned. The fencing ran crooked. The farmhouse itself was warm inside, but visibly tired, a structure that had been patched and repatched so many times it had forgotten what it originally looked like. But it was dry, and the wood stove in the corner was throwing out real heat. And when he handed her a mug of black coffee without asking how she took it, she wrapped both hands around it and didn't say a word. He didn't ask her name. He didn't ask what a woman in a $40,000 coat was doing alone on a dirt road in a blizzard. He just moved around his kitchen with a quiet efficiency that told her he was used to doing everything himself. He pulled a wool blanket from a chest near the window and set it on the chair across from her. He checked the wood stove. He went to the window and looked at the storm the way farmers do, not with fear, but with a kind of resigned calculation. "Roads will be closed until morning at the earliest," he said. "Probably noon. I have meetings," she said. "You had meetings," he said, and went back to the stove. She should have been irritated. She would have been irritated with anyone else. But something in the complete absence of deference in his voice, the way he spoke to her like she was simply a stranded person and nothing more, caught her off guard. She couldn't remember the last time someone had spoken to her like that, like she was just a person. She slept in what she later understood was the only bed in the house. She didn't ask where he slept. In the morning she found him already outside, clearing a path from the farmhouse to the barn with a shovel that had a cracked handle wrapped in electrical tape. She stood in the doorway and watched him for a moment. The storm had passed. The world was white and still and enormous. He moved through it without complaint, steady and methodical, like a man who understood that the only way through hard things was straight through them. She put on her coat and walked out. "I can help," she said. He looked at her heels, then at her face. He handed her a smaller shovel from against the wall without a word. They worked for 2 hours. She was terrible at it. Her shoulders burned. She got snow down her sleeve twice. At some point she looked up and found him watching her with something close to amusement. The first expression she had seen break through that steady face. She didn't know why, but it made her feel like she'd won something. Over the next hours, waiting for the road crews, they talked. Not the way she talked in conference rooms or charity galas, not the polished, strategic exchange of information she had perfected over years. They talked the way people talk when there is nothing to perform and nowhere to be. He told her about the farm, how it had been his grandfather's, then his father's, then his, how 3 consecutive drought years and a bad equipment loan had put him close to the edge. He said it without self-pity, which somehow made it harder to hear. She told him she worked in business. She didn't say which business. He didn't ask. He made her eggs, with the last 4 eggs in his refrigerator and half a block of cheese, and she ate every bite standing at his kitchen counter because there was something about sitting at his table that felt too formal for what was happening between them. This strange, honest, borrowed morning that belonged to neither of their real lives. And then she saw it. She had gone to use the bathroom, and on her way back she passed the small room he used as an office. The door was half open. On the desk, half buried under a stack of bills, was a photograph in a silver frame. She stopped, looked. Her breath left her body slowly, like air from a tire with a small leak. The photograph was old, faded at the edges. It showed a man in his 50s standing in front of this exact farmhouse, younger then, better kept, with his arm around a woman Victoria recognized, a woman with Victoria's own eyes, her own jaw, her own way of standing with her weight shifted slightly left. Her mother, who had told Victoria her entire life that she grew up in Chicago. Her mother, Eleanor Caldwell, who had died 3 years ago, leaving behind a $4 billion estate and a carefully curated story of a hard-working city girl who had built herself from nothing. Her mother, who had never once mentioned Montana, who had never once mentioned a farm, who had never once mentioned the name Roe. Victoria's hand was on the doorframe. She did not go in. She stood there for a long time. When she came back to the kitchen, Daniel was washing the pan. He looked at her face and he went still. He turned off the tap. "The photograph," she said. It was not a question. He didn't flinch. He didn't deny it. He dried his hands slowly on the dish towel. And then he sat down at the table and he told her Eleanor Rowe had grown up on this farm. She was Daniel's father's sister, his aunt. She had left Montana at 19 under circumstances the family never fully spoke about. Ran from something or toward something no one ever quite knew. She changed her name. She built a different life. She sent money back to the farm exactly once, a check with no return address, when Daniel's father got sick, and she never came back. Not once, not ever. Daniel had known who Victoria was the moment he looked up her face on his neighbor's phone, the morning after she arrived, and the search results filled the screen. He had recognized the eyes immediately. Eleanor's eyes. He had said nothing. He had been trying to decide if it was his secret to tell. Victoria sat across from him at the kitchen table, where her mother had once sat as a girl, and she did not speak for a long time. Outside, the snow was blinding white and perfectly still. The wood stove ticked. Somewhere in the barn, a horse shifted its weight. "She never told me," Victoria said finally. Her voice was steady. She had her mother's discipline in her bones. "I know," Daniel said. "She had family. She had—" Victoria stopped, started again. "She died alone. We both thought she was alone. She died thinking she was alone. She made a choice," Daniel said quietly. "I don't know why she made it. I spent a lot of years being angry about it. I'm not angry anymore. I live with it." Victoria looked at him, really looked at him. The tired farmhouse, the cracked handle shovel, the last 4 eggs given to a stranger, a man quietly holding a family wound by himself for decades, with no audience, no credit, no resolution. "She should have come back," Victoria said. "Yeah," he said. "She should have." She called her attorney that afternoon when the roads opened and her phone found signal at the top of the hill. She sat in her recovered Range Rover, with the heat running, and gave a series of instructions in a voice. that was completely controlled and completely deliberate. She declined to explain the reason. She never explained her reasons. 3 weeks later, Daniel Rowe received a legal document in the mail. It was not a check. It was not charity in any form he would have recognized as charity. It was a contract, a formal business arrangement, restructuring the farm's debt through a subsidiary of Caldwell Industries in exchange for a long-term agricultural lease agreement at a rate so favorable it amounted to nothing. It was the kind of document that required a lawyer to fully understand, which was exactly why she had done it that way. Tucked inside the envelope, on plain white paper with no letterhead, was a single handwritten line. She chose wrong. I'm choosing differently. Daniel sat at his kitchen table for a long time after he read it. Then he looked at the photograph on his desk, at his aunt's face, at those eyes that had looked at him across that same table just 3 weeks before. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, the thing he felt was not loneliness. It was the cautious, unfamiliar, almost painful feeling of not being alone anymore. The farm didn't become prosperous overnight. That is not how real things work. But the fence got fixed that spring. The barn roof got repaired before the next snow season. And on a Thursday morning in early April, when the ground was just beginning to soften, a white Range Rover came up the dirt road and parked in front of the farmhouse. She brought nothing. She asked for nothing. She just stood on the porch and looked out over the fields that her mother had once looked out over as a girl and breathed the cold Montana air like it was something she had been needing for a long time. He came out and stood beside her. Neither of them said anything for a while. I don't know how to do this, she said finally. Family, whatever this is. Neither do I, he said. I've been doing it alone for a long time. So have I, she said. The fields stretched out ahead of them, imperfect, cold, still carrying the last memory of snow in the low places, where the sun hadn't reached yet. But the sky above them was enormous and clear and entirely open. She stayed for the weekend. Then she came back the next month. Then the month after that. Nobody in her world quite understood it. Her board of directors did not understand it. Her publicist certainly did not understand it. But none of them had ever sat in a dead car in a Montana blizzard and had the silence show them exactly what was missing from their lives. Some things cannot be explained in a boardroom. Some things can only be understood by a wood stove in a tired farmhouse, on land that has been holding a family secret for 30 years. She had come looking for nothing. She had found the one thing $4 billion had never been able to buy her. She had found where she came from. Before you go, if this story moved you even a little, you already know what to do. Hit that like button. And if you want more stories that actually stay with you long after they're over, subscribe to this channel. There are people finding these videos every single day who say the same thing. I couldn't stop watching. Now you know why. We'll see you in the next one. अगर इमेज प्रॉम्प्ट्स चाहिए इस स्टोरी के लिए बता दें, अभी रेडी कर देता हूँ.